Hey everyone, we are working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
Stop. Stop whatever you are doing right now and look at that footage. Look at where that man is standing. That is not a preseason game in August where nothing matters and rosters are 60 deep and coaches are just trying to get through the week. That is not some random regular season Week 14 contest between two teams going nowhere. That is a playoff game. That is the Kansas City Chiefs. That is the most pressure-saturated, most scrutinized, most demanding football environment that this league produces year after year after year. And the man you just watched, the man breathing that air, absorbing that energy, standing in that locker room and running out of that tunnel. His name is Swayze Bozeman, and I am going to bet everything I have that before this video started, you had absolutely no idea he existed. I am Dre. This is Dre Talk Sports. And today we are going somewhere the mainstream NFL media would never bother going. We are going deep, all the way deep, on the most quietly significant signing of this entire offseason. Because while everybody else is out here chasing blockbusters and screaming about cap space and debating the top 10 free agents, we are in the lab. We are doing the work. And the work today is all about a name, a story, and a signing that tells you everything you need to know about how championship football is actually built. Now, I need you to stay with me for this entire video, because I am going to take you on a full journey from southern Mississippi all the way to Kansas City, from 35 snaps in New York to a brand new opportunity on a roster with real aspirations. I am going to give you the numbers, the context, the history, and the opinion that nobody else is brave enough to put on record. And by the time we are finished here, whether you end up believing in Swayze Bozeman or not, you are going to have a completely different understanding of how NFL rosters are constructed and why moves like this one, quiet, unflashy, completely under the radar, are often the ones that end up mattering the most when January comes around and the lights get brightest. Let us go all the way back to the beginning, because context is everything in this business. And if you want to understand Swayze Bozeman, you have to understand where he came from and what that origin story actually means. Southern Mississippi. The Golden Eagles. Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Now I want you to think about what it means to come out of that program and make it onto an NFL roster. Because we live in a world where the conversation about college football talent is almost entirely dominated by the SEC heavyweights and the Big Ten powerhouses. Alabama ships out first-round picks the way Amazon ships packages. Ohio State produces NFL defensive backs on an assembly line. Georgia's front sevens have been terrorizing the league for years now. Those programs have recruiting pipelines, facilities, coaching staffs, and national profiles that make the path to the NFL significantly more accessible for their players. Southern Mississippi is not that. Southern Mississippi is a program in Conference USA where players are fighting for attention, fighting for scout eyeballs, fighting for opportunities that the five-star recruits at the brand-name schools get handed without even asking. To come out of that environment and convince an NFL franchise to put you on their roster requires a level of self-promotion, film study, physical preparation, and pure competitive will that goes above and beyond what most players ever have to demonstrate. Dre's personal opinion right here, and I mean this sincerely, players who come from mid-major programs and make NFL rosters have already proven something about their character before they ever take a professional snap. The path was harder, the resources were fewer, the doubters were louder, and they made it anyway. That is who Swayze Bozeman is at his foundation. That is the DNA we are working with before we even talk about one single NFL play. His first stop in the NFL was the Kansas City Chiefs. And I need you to really sit with that for a moment before we move on, because this detail is not trivial. This is not a throwaway line. The Kansas City Chiefs under Andy Reid and general manager Brett Veach operate one of the most disciplined, most ruthlessly efficient roster-building operations in the entire league. According to multiple reports from NFL insiders and analysts who cover the organization, the Chiefs have a reputation for keeping players on their roster who serve specific, defined purposes, guys who understand scheme, execute assignments under pressure, and contribute on special teams at a championship level. They do not carry bodies, they do not sign names for the sake of nostalgia or storylines. Every single man on that roster has to earn his spot through performance, and the competition for those 53 spots is as fierce as anywhere in professional football. So when I tell you that Swayze Bozeman made it onto the Kansas City Chiefs active roster and appeared in 3 games, 3 actual, real, regular season NFL games in a Chiefs uniform, I need you to understand what that means. It means the most demanding coaching staff in professional football looked at this man evaluated his film, watched him in practice, and decided he was ready to be trusted on an NFL field. That is the threshold he cleared. According to Pro Football Reference, in those 3 games, Bozeman registered 3 combined tackles, 2 solo stops, and 1 assisted tackle. No sacks, no forced fumbles. Nothing that is going to show up on a highlight reel. But here is what Dre sees in that stat line that most people completely miss. I see a player who was called upon in a live game situation, in a real NFL environment, against real NFL offensive players, and executed his assignment cleanly enough that the coaches kept coming back to him. You do not get dressed for a Kansas City Chiefs game and then come back and get dressed again if you messed up the first time. The fact that he appeared 3 times tells you the staff trusted what they saw. But then the postseason happened. And this is the part of the Swayze Bozeman story that genuinely stopped me cold when I was researching this video. Because according to the data, Bozeman was on the Chiefs roster during their playoff run. 3 postseason games. Think about what that means in the full scope of an NFL career. Most players in this league, the vast majority of the men who ever put on a professional football uniform, never experience a single playoff game. They grind through training camps and preseason rosters, and practice squad elevations and midseason roster shuffles, and they never once get to stand on a field in January when the entire football world is watching. Swayze Bozeman has done it 3 times. As a third-year player from southern Mississippi, who nobody was writing columns about or dropping on NFL draft boards, he was in those buildings. He was in those locker rooms. He breathed that air and felt that pressure and survived in that environment. And you are telling me that experience counts for nothing? Dre's personal opinion, and I will die on this hill. The mental experience of playoff football is one of the most undervalued assets in the entire sport. There is a version of football that you play in September that is completely different from the football you play in January. The speed is different, the crowd noise is different, the stakes change how players think, how they process information, how they react under duress. Coaches know this. Front offices know this. That is why veteran presence matters. That is why teams specifically seek out players who have been in those environments before when they are building rosters for championship runs. And now your team has a linebacker who already has that experience in his body, in his memory, in his nervous system. That is not nothing. That is something real that money cannot buy and training camp cannot replicate. Now let us move to New York, because the Giants chapter of this story is where things get analytically fascinating, and where I think the real evaluation of Swayze Bozeman gets most complicated. With the Giants in 2024, Bozeman appeared in 6 games. 6 games sounds like a step forward, right? More appearances, more opportunity, more time to build chemistry with a coaching staff and a defensive system. But then you look at the snap counts and the whole picture shifts. According to the breakdown of his usage, Bozeman logged just 35 total snaps across that entire 6-game stretch with New York. Break it down even further, and the picture gets more specific. 15 snaps in run defense, 2 snaps as a pass rusher, and 18 snaps in coverage. That is it. That is every moment of professional football Swayze Bozeman played during the entire 2024 NFL regular season with the Giants. Now compare that to Kansas City. With the Chiefs, in 3 games, 3, not 6, he racked up approximately 34 to 35 snaps. Nearly identical snap counts but spread across half the number of games. More snaps per game in Kansas City than in New York. And that discrepancy tells a story that the raw statistics completely obscure. What it tells you is that the 2 organizations had fundamentally different ideas about how to use this player. Kansas City found a role, plugged him in, trusted him with meaningful snaps per appearance, and kept bringing him back. New York spread him thin across more games but never committed to a consistent usage pattern. And from a player development standpoint, that inconsistency is brutal. You cannot evaluate what a linebacker can do when you are giving him 2 or 3 snaps per game and asking him to be ready but keeping him sidelined the rest of the time. The rhythm never develops. The chemistry never builds. The confidence never compounds. Dre's opinion? The Giants coaching staff never fully committed to figuring out what Swayze Bozeman could be. And that is not entirely on the player. Let me talk about PFF grades for a second, because I know some of you are already in the comments typing about his grade and his rating and why the numbers say what they say. And I need to address this directly because there is a fundamental misunderstanding in NFL fan culture about how analytical grades work for players with extremely limited snap counts. According to Pro Football Focus and the methodology they use to assign grades, every rating they produce is a function of opportunity. It requires enough snaps in enough situations across enough opponents to generate a statistically meaningful evaluation. When a player has logged under 40 snaps in an entire season, the grade that gets attached to his name is essentially based on a microsample that tells you almost nothing reliable about his actual ability level. It is the analytical equivalent of judging a quarterback's accuracy after 4 pass attempts. The sample is too small, the situation's too limited, and the context too specific to draw any broad conclusions. What you can evaluate, what actually gives you meaningful information about a player with Bozeman's snap count profile, is his athletic profile, his age curve, his positional versatility, and his competitive history. And on all 4 of those dimensions, the picture is genuinely interesting. At 27 years old, he is at the precise age where NFL linebackers historically hit their developmental peak in terms of processing speed and physical capability, working in combination. His frame and athleticism have been professional level enough to survive on 2 different rosters in 2 different systems. His positional usage across both stops, run defense, pass rush, coverage, indicates that coaching staffs see enough versatility to deploy him in multiple contexts rather than limiting him to one specific role. And his competitive history, as we have already established, includes playoff football at the highest level the sport produces. None of those things show up in a PFF grade, but all of them matter. Now I want to talk about the age argument in a way that goes deeper than the surface-level take, because 27 years old gets dismissed too quickly in football conversations, and it drives me absolutely insane. In the broader sports cultural conversation, 27 is treated like a player is already on the downslope, like their best days are behind them and teams should be moving toward younger options. And in certain positions and certain contexts, that conversation has merit. A running back at 27 who has carried the ball 300 times per season for 4 years is a different discussion than a linebacker at 27 who has barely accumulated 200 career snaps. The physical wear, the injury history, the mileage, all completely different situations that require completely different evaluations. Swayze Bozeman at 27 has the age-related maturity and the professional experience that makes him ready to contribute at a higher level right now. But he does not have the accumulated physical punishment that comes with being a high-usage starter for several seasons. His body is not broken down, his knees are not exhausted. His football IQ has been sharpened by 3 years in professional systems under legitimate NFL coaches, but his physical prime is still fully intact. According to research on linebacker development curves published by various football analytics platforms, inside linebackers typically hit their peak performance window somewhere between 26 and 30 years old, a range that accounts for the cognitive demands of the position requiring more time to develop than pure athleticism positions. Swayze Bozeman is sitting right in the middle of that window. He is not too young to be unreliable. He is not too old to be declining. He is exactly where a linebacker needs to be to have his best football ahead of him. And your team just signed him. Here is the part of the conversation that I want to make sure we spend real time on because it is the part that most NFL coverage completely ignores. It is the part about what depth actually means in the context of a full NFL season, and why every single linebacker spot on a 53-man roster carries genuine strategic weight. According to injury data tracked by outlets covering the NFL, the average NFL team deals with multiple significant defensive player injuries across the course of a 16 to 17 game regular season. Linebackers are among the highest injury rate positions in the sport, given the volume of contact they absorb. Run fits in the box, crossing routes in coverage, blitz pickups, special teams collisions. Starters get hurt. That is not a possibility. That is a certainty. And when a starter goes down in Week 8 and your team is sitting at 5-2 with legitimate playoff aspirations, the question of who steps into that role becomes one of the most critical roster decisions of the entire season. That is the moment when Swayze Bozeman could matter most. Not Week 1, not the opening depth chart, not the first press conference of training camp, but the moment in November when the injury report comes out and a starter is questionable, or out, and someone needs to step up and execute. And in that moment, the difference between a guy who has been in playoff locker rooms and absorbed NFL defensive assignments from experienced coaches versus a raw undrafted rookie who is still processing the speed of the professional game, that difference is enormous. Dre's personal opinion? Teams that win championships are not built exclusively from the top of the roster down. They are built from the bottom of the roster up, and the decisions made about spots 40 through 53 are often the ones that define January results. This signing is a spot 40 through 53 decision, and it is the right one. So let us bring this all the way home, let us zoom all the way out and look at the full portrait of Swayze Bozeman, the complete picture that this signing paints when you step back and see it clearly. You have a 27-year-old linebacker from southern Mississippi who fought his way onto one of the most demanding rosters in professional football as his very first NFL stop. You have a player who was trusted with snaps by Andy Reid's coaching staff, one of the most respected and analytically sophisticated coaching operations the game has ever seen. You have a player who survived in a playoff environment and came out the other side with experience that simply cannot be manufactured in a practice setting. You have a player who went to New York, got underused, got inconsistently deployed, got a smaller role than what Kansas City gave him, and still kept showing up, still kept competing, still kept his name alive on NFL transaction wires when lesser motivated players would have walked away. And now you have a player who is walking through one more open door, with 3 full years of professional football in his body and absolutely everything left to prove. Is Swayze Bozeman going to make the final 53-man roster? Honestly, it could genuinely go either way. Training camps are brutal and unpredictable, and the competition for depth linebacker spots is as fierce as any position on the field. There will be younger players with higher ceilings fighting for the same spots. There will be veterans with longer resumes pushing for consideration. Nothing about Bozeman's path to this roster is guaranteed, and anyone telling you otherwise is not being straight with you. But here's what I know for certain. He has earned the right to compete. He has earned the right to walk into that training camp and fight for a spot on the strength of everything he has already accomplished, just to get to this moment. And players who have earned the right to compete, players who are hungry, who are experienced, who have been overlooked and underestimated and who show up anyway, those are the players that define training camps and surprise everyone by September. The NFL offseason never stops. The roster moves never stop. The stories never stop. And here at Dre Talk Sports, we are never going to stop digging into every single layer of this sport that the mainstream media glosses over in their rush toward the next blockbuster headline. Swayze Bozeman is the story today. Your team made a move that most people dismissed without a second thought. We gave it the full treatment it deserved, because every player has a story. Every signing has a meaning. And every quiet transaction wire update is somebody's entire life. Somebody's dream, somebody's grind, somebody's next chapter. That is what football is really about when you strip away the spectacle and the noise and the hot takes. It is about people who refuse to quit. And Swayze Bozeman has not quit yet. Not even close. All right, we are at the end, and you already know what time it is. If you made it all the way through this video, you are not a casual fan. You are a real one. You are the kind of football mind that this channel was built for, and I appreciate every single second you spent here with me today. Now I need something from you. Drop a comment right now. Right now, do not wait. And tell me, is Swayze Bozeman a hidden gem waiting to explode in training camp? Or is he just another camp body who is going to be gone before the preseason ends? I genuinely want to know what you think. The debate is open, the floor is yours. And while you are down there in the comments, smash that like button with everything you have got. Every like pushes this video to more real football fans who deserve this kind of deep dive coverage instead of the surface level takes they are getting everywhere else. If you are not subscribed yet, I do not know what you are waiting for. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications, because the schedule release is coming, the preseason is right around the corner, and every single roster move between now and September is getting the full Dre Talk Sports treatment. We are not slowing down. We are not taking shortcuts. We are going deep on every story that matters. This is Dre. No filter, no fluff. Just real football. Let's get it.